Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are ready to start our meeting and council meeting. And welcome everybody, and we'll begin with call to order.
Hay.
Yes.
Briggs.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Miller.
Okay, I think the first thing on the agenda is a presentation from the Public Safety, and we have Major Bryce Mesco doing that for us. Did you have something to say?
Just like going back to school. That's right. Let me draw on it.
All right. Good evening. Yes, I'm Bryce Mesco, the Assistant Chief of Public Safety. I'm doing the 2022 Department Update tonight. 2022 was kind of a tumultuous year for public safety. We had a lot of ups and a lot of downs, and I'm going to touch on those tonight. But I can most assuredly say that where we stand now in May of 2023 is substantially better than where we stood a year ago. So I guess we're heading in the right direction. You're right. So we'll start with apparatus or our fleet. Most people think of equipment when they first start thinking of police work and firefighting. Our patrol vehicle fleet is 11 vehicles. 8 of them are marked, 3 of them are unmarked. 6 of them are SUVs. The city has historically done a very good job of keeping us rotating vehicles out as they reach certain mileage points or age points, and we have continued that, so we have managed to keep everyone in safe and professional vehicles. Our fire apparatus, we have 2 engines, one with 1,000 gallons of water on it, one with 750 and some foam. We also have our 100-foot aerial and then a Ford F-350, which we use to supplement our brush fire operations and our rescue operations. Okay, but this is what makes the engine work. This is what we're doing. It's the people. The next 3 slides have pictures of our team. I did not get everyone pictured, but I do have everyone's name in that supplemental report that you have if you want to know who all is currently part of the team. When we are fully staffed, we have 34 commissioned public safety officers, 2 non-commissioned support staff, actually 1.5, one is part-time, and then 10 volunteer firefighters. We ended 2022 with 12 commissioned people that had 5 years or more experience, and that's actually kind of significant in this profession, and actually in a lot of professions or practices, it takes about 5 years to kind of become an expert. So we have managed to retain enough people to reach that milestone. Staffing's an issue everywhere. We got hit, the police profession kind of got hit in, like say 2015. People started leaving the profession and no new blood coming in to join. Really, prior to that, we would lose 4 to 5 people a year, and we generally had 13 applications for every position we were trying to fill. 2015 started different, the numbers started to flip, and in 2018 we really got hit hard. We lost 12 commissioned officers. 3 of them were to retirement, but we still lost them, so we lost about a third of the department. We started working in the city, we all started working trying to come up with ways to help with recruitment and retention, and we kind of were holding our own, kind of starting to rebuild, and then COVID hit, which changed the dynamics for the labor force everywhere, and we came out of that, and then we sat in 2022, and once again in 2022 we lost 12 people, 12 commissioned officers. So while we were trying to heal, we got kind of punched again. council, everybody did a very good job. We worked and got our salaries maybe a little more competitive and kind of stopped the bleeding. We still don't get a lot of applications. That's profession-wide. I mentioned that we used to get 13. Now we get 2 applications for every spot that we're looking to fill. We have not lowered our standards as far as our selection process or our job performance process. We believe the community deserves better than that. So we are only hiring about 1/3 of the people that apply. So you guys can do the math. We're getting 2 applications, hiring 1/3. That means we're hiring 2/3 of a person for every person we lose. That's obviously not sustainable. That's not the trajectory we want to go. But it does appear that we've hit bottom and we are now trekking back up. We are getting more people in and they are quality people. Personnel conduct reports, every community has the right to have a say in how they are policed. In Mexico, that's done through our PCRs, our personnel conduct reports. People can call in, email, whatever, and they can talk about commendations if they want to say an officer or a group of officers did well. They can do inquiries, which inquiries are usually a kind of a subtle complaint. Rarely people call in just to ask a question. It's usually something like, hey, I heard my name was run on the scanner. Why are you guys harassing me? That kind of stuff. And then there's allegations of misconduct where they may say an officer acted unprofessionally, illegally, immorally, something like that. So we take everything, we categorize it. Most things are resolved in intake, which means once we kind of talk to the reporter, we kind of come to some common ground, and generally they say they are good with us just handling things internally. Sometimes they require, the reporter wants us to dig a little deeper, do a more thorough investigation, and get back with them on what we found, which it could be that the complaint was sustained, not sustained, maybe we dug and found some other form of misconduct other than what the reporter was alleging. So those are our numbers for 2022. And then use of force. We got to keep track of use of force. That's a pretty significant issue in the police world. We keep track of everything. We keep track of when we put hands on people, through our intermediate weapons, and even when we point a firearm at someone, because when you do that, you're literally within an inch of possibly taking a life. So we keep track of all of that. Not all departments do. You can see that in 2022, we had 23 incidents involving 39 officers. A lot of incidents have more than one officer actually involved. And so those are the types of force we used. I put the stars by 2022 because it's, for numbers people, it's going to be off one. And that's because in 2022, we actually used something we rarely use, which is our less lethal or our beanbag shotgun. In the early part of the year, February or March, it was pulled out, I know. We had a gentleman walking with a knife, struggling mentally, was not complying with the officer's orders. They were able to position themselves and safely deploy our beanbag shotgun, take him into custody, and the good news is, well, nobody else was hurt, and we got him actually to MUPC and have not had any other problems since. So that's a win, I guess. And then call totals. Everyone wants to know what we spend our time doing. I put dispatch counts up there. In the past, a lot of organizations or police departments will kind of use that term as calls. I think that's a little misleading. So dispatch counts are calls. They are when people pick up the phone and want us. It's also if we do a traffic stop. It's also if we go out somewhere for follow-up. It's every time the dispatcher counts, an officer is doing something. So you see we had about 26,000 dispatch counts through 2022. Calls for service, though, would be when people pick up the phone and want us, or at least think they want us at first. At 10,600 times that happens, so it's still whatever, 30 times a day. Traffic stops, we did 1,000. Fire calls, we did 233. Reports, we did over 3,000 reports. A lot of people don't consider the amount of documentation, the importance of documentation in police work. We spend a lot of time doing that. Some reports can be easy, like a little 2-paragraph incident report. Even crash reports now, though, the state wants 6 pages of data so that they can do all their studies. And then, of course, we have significant investigations, too, which we could have 15 to 50 to maybe even sometimes 100 supplementals. So we did 3,000 reports and we sent 732 cases to the prosecutor. That would either be the state prosecutor, city prosecutor, or the juvenile office. And we have a very low decline rate. We try to not send junk to the prosecutors. They don't very often tell us our cases aren't good. It's like 1.2%. NIBRS is the National Incident-Based Reporting System. That is kind of nationwide and statewide how we keep track of crimes. Technically, it's a little dicey comparing things, but we're comparing numbers with other communities, but we all do it because there's really no other way to compare our crime rates. Categories are broken, or the crimes are broken into crimes against people or crimes against property, or property crimes. And I've got some more, it's broken down a little more in that supplemental stuff I gave you, but in 2022, we had 384 property crimes and 24 crimes against people. A little higher, as you can see, than some of the previous years. Obviously, we'd love them to be 0 and 0. That's throughout a year. That's probably not very feasible, though. I would ask, as you look through the numbers, though, of each category, I put in there the clearance rate. Those are cases that are sent to the prosecutor when an arrest warrant happens or a case goes to court. Our clearance rates are comparable, as good or better than pretty much anyone. So, because we are out there hustling, we are trying to hold people accountable for their actions. And I'd also want to point out that on the property crimes, of the 384, 299 of them are stealings, and of the 299, 110 are shopliftings at Walmart. That's not a blast at Walmart or say anything horrible about them. It's just to say that really a third of those property crimes that are listed are from one major retailer. It's not that people are running around stealing everything off of everyone's porches every day. Fire calls. We had 233 fire calls in 2022, a little bit more than the previous few years. And again, in that supplemental stuff, I broke down the fires in like structure fires, vehicle fires, trash fires, stuff like that. What I did put on the slide was our A pages. I'm not sure even if everyone really knows how we work, but when we go to the more serious fires, not alarms, not like gas leaks, not carbon monoxide issues, but the things that are likely to actually be a fire or a hazard, we do what's called an A page, and that's when we bring in our volunteers and some off-duty officers. That's actually a pretty common tactic for fire departments for communities this size, and gives us more hands because those are the issues where we need more hands. So you can see in 2022 we did 36 A pages. And in that vein, I already mentioned it, in 2022 we took possession of our new aerial. It was a 100-foot, it is a 100-foot platform truck, Ferrara platform truck. It replaced our 94 Sutphen bucket truck. It's a very good piece of equipment. I think it'll serve the community pretty well for years to come. It's kind of impressive to look at too, which doesn't really matter, but it is important. We took a little bit different tactic, as most of you are well aware. We did not do the typical go through a bid process to have someone design a truck and have it come off the line. What we did is we bought a demo model. Something that Ferrara already took around the fire departments to show them what they could do, and it had a few miles on it, but nothing that was a deal breaker, and saved us some money. Most specifically, it saved us time. Right now, to get a fire apparatus off an assembly line, it's 2+, maybe even 3+ years right now. So that's worked out well. Traffic crashes, we always want to prevent traffic crashes or minimize their damage as much as possible. And actually 2022 was a solid year. 240 traffic crashes and 0 fatalities. Those are actually some of the best numbers we've had in recent history. Don't want to jinx anything. But yeah, that's a positive. We want to keep the roadways as safe as possible. And then drug arrests, most people are interested in what we're doing to address the drug issues. And we'll talk more about that, I think, later on the MOU. Mexico Public Safety itself had 28 drug arrests in 2022, 15 of them felony, 13 of them misdemeanor. The other ways we work to combat drug issues in the community, number one, we are part of the East Central Drug Task Force, which their numbers are in that paperwork, and we can talk about them later if you guys want as well. We also are a participant in drug court. Different people have different opinions about drug court. The basic premise of it is to take first-time, nonviolent offenders and kind of almost force them into a rehab with the threat of jail time hanging over their head. And how we participate is we work with drug court, we have a liaison officer, and we kind of keep the court aware of what the people are doing. Maybe it doesn't lead to an arrest, but what they're doing out and about in the community. If we come across them involved in something maybe they shouldn't be. So it kind of helps the court hold people accountable and hopefully actually lead to some success in getting through the program. Training, we all want everyone to have plenty of training. The Missouri Post police officer standards and training requires at least 24 hours of training per officer per year to keep your post license. ISO, for insurance purposes, they want every firefighter to have at least 24 hours of, we call it kind of company drill, team training, mostly hands-on, every year to keep your ISO rating. And we take care of all that, and we actually far surpass that. 3,200 hours of training in 2022, and I listed a lot of the stuff that we send people to in that supplemental. What I did not list and what that number doesn't include is, say, the police academy. We have started sending people through a police academy. That's about 680 hours now for someone to get through the academy. Our field training, which when we get someone back and they have a post license, they then ride with someone and we get them supplemental certifications like, say, in radar and other little things. And that's about 600 hours of training that they go through. What else? Oh, we do shift training, which consists of a couple hours every month, so 24 hours per person per year. And that's some law review, some policy review, and anything that the supervisors themselves see the person or the shift maybe kind of struggling on. And then mostly I did want to commend, we sent this year Lieutenant Stuart Thompson to the Northwestern University School of Police Staff and Command. And that is one of the more prestigious police trainings that someone can attend. It's very rigorous academically, and he made it through. We got him through. He went through his 10 weeks, so that's about 400 hours of training, and made him, and we're trying to always make all of us a little bit better. And then I want to touch on some of the bad. So December 23rd, 2022, most people in Mexico are familiar with this incident that I got in the picture. But I kind of wanted to mention maybe a slightly different light on it. That day, middle of the night, we had a pretty rough fire at the Forest Village apartment complex. Everyone's probably aware that there was a gentleman, he murdered his mother, then lit the apartment complex on fire to cover that up, then went and started another fire at Miller Warehouse. Those conditions during that fire were pretty close to record-breaking. I haven't seen them in the 27 years I've been playing at this. Very dangerous. And the team got out there, we got out there and worked pretty darn hard to bring it to completion. You can't tell, but we actually saved 2 of the apartments in that building. I'm sure that matters a lot, but we did do that. But more importantly, every person with the exception of the victim, the original murder, got out of those apartments alive. Which, if you can see that and you know all the calls and probably the people talking, probably posting on social media, that was not... No, that was something. 4 of us suffered some minor frostbite. 1 of us actually had some hypothermia symptoms. But what I was going to bring out is that what we didn't really cry about, we were there a long time because once the fire was out, we were still trying to find the victim. And the conditions never got better. Weather conditions never got better. And then that was followed up with the next day, Christmas Eve day, we actually had another house fire on West Breckenridge. It was small, not that big a deal, but still the team showed up, we did what we had to do and made sure that house was okay. And then that was followed up during the early morning hours of Christmas, like 1-ish in the morning on Christmas morning with a fire at 8 p.m. Could have been a big deal. It was one of their waste containers under a shelter next to a building that lit off. And of course, they had their skeleton crews on and their less experienced people on, the people who drew the short straws and had to work Christmas Eve. And again, the team showed up, and we kept swinging. And then that was followed up with a murder investigation, which those are very time-consuming and very tiring. And we did bring that to a conclusion. Within a couple of weeks, had arrest warrants for the suspect. And so I guess the point of that is even though there was a lot of negativity as far as a blow to public safety and stuff, there was actually a lot of hard work and maybe minor success stories as part of it. And then I will say this would be a high, what some people may or may not know is November 1st of 2022 was our 50-year anniversary for being public safety. And we honestly couldn't get around to celebrating it in November or December. So we waited, and in the early part of 2023, actually some of the team members, some volunteers and some officers threw in their own money, threw in their own time, threw in their own resources, and we had a little celebration. And we invited all the current team, their family, and local retirees, their family, and it was pretty well attended. It was a good opportunity for the old and the new to talk and tell war stories, and I believe it was beneficial both for us to take a second to pat ourselves on the back and to learn stuff, because you can't really know where you're going until you know where you've been, right? So that was a plus. And then this, I'll just end on this. This is the back of a challenge coin. For those who don't know, challenge coins are kind of a big deal for military and paramilitary operations. It's basically just a coin, not worth any money, but it's a coin that you're given if you accomplish something. And right now, it's part of what we've done to kind of work on retention. We do give a challenge coin to people who have stayed with us for 3 years. And this is just a little logo we kind of came up with several years ago, and we're still trying to do that today. So that was 2022 in a nutshell.
Well, it finished big. I said the year finished big, I'll say that. Yeah, the fires.
Yeah, that was a way to remember.
Right.
I'm the new guy, so I'm going to ask a couple of stupid questions. They'll probably look at me and say, what is he doing?
I'm sure that's not.
You mentioned salary increase, so you've been a little more successful in recruiting. How do we compare with other communities our size?
And that's always a floating target. What we did in 2022 and moving in to prepare for the fiscal year, which starts in October, Roger and Mr. Slagle, we checked a lot of communities and tried to make sure we were comparable. I hesitate to throw a number right now if I say we were number 1 or number 2 in a certain geographic area, because it changes constantly. Everyone's competing. So what I can say with confidence and what I've seen from not everybody walking out the door is we did do, everyone here deserves credit, but we did do a good job of making us more competitive.
We did make some changes, and we did address that issue.
And it was a significant.
And it was significant, so I can't right on top of my head say.
And I noticed that you list a category of firefighters.
Volunteer firefighters?
Or they're volunteers.
They're volunteers. I'm
Okay.
sorry, I should clarify. So
No
public
problem.
safety officers are cross-trained, they do police and fire, and then we have firefighters who are volunteers also.
Yeah, I knew the public safety was a combination. I just didn't know where the firefighter deal was. That's volunteers. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? That was a nice presentation. I know you haven't done a lot of these. Thank you. Okay, moving on. We need to approve our minutes.
Make a motion to approve minutes?
Second.
Hay,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
We're now into resolutions, and there are a number of them this evening. We'll try and get through them as quickly as possible. First of all, our first one is Bill number 2023-23, and it has to do with, it's another police issue, a public safety issue. Resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a memorandum of understanding with the East Central Drug Task Force. Mr. Schlegel.
Yes, this is our annual contract, and we've been doing this for some time. And to cover the details of the contract and some of the numbers, Major Metzger.
It's a way for me to just keep the attention on myself. In 2001, we joined the East Central Drug Task Force, joined the sheriff's offices of Audrain, Cooper, Howard, Montgomery, Monroe, Pike, and Warren counties, and the police departments Bowling Green, Fayette, Glasgow, High Hill, Jonesburg, obviously us, Montgomery City, New Florence, New Franklin, Palmyra, Vandalia, and Warrenton. Now that's where it stands now. That's the current membership. It was not that way when we started in 2001. And it's run by the Highway Patrol. They identify and target for prosecution the most criminally active drug enterprises that affect the task force area, and all criminal activities of those drug enterprises are addressed by the task force. The task force enhances the effectiveness of federal, state, and local law enforcement resources through a well-coordinated initiative seeking the most effective investigative and prosecutive avenues by which to convict and incarcerate drug offenders. It's a joint operation with all agencies acting in a partnership. There's an executive board comprised of the participating entities. Then there's the MOU, which basically indicates that we would pay $11,500 for our share in the task force for this year. I do have some of their numbers, and I put it in that paperwork that you had. I mentioned we did the 28 drug arrests. They made 27 arrests, but that was as a result of 13 search warrants, 26 investigations. And I'm sorry, this is not task force wide. This is just Mexico, Padre County. You see the numbers. They recovered 11 firearms, 853 grams of meth, 2 grams of cocaine, marijuana, ecstasy, THC wax, 28 grams of fentanyl, and 47 units or pills of prescription meds. So we would recommend that you proceed reading the title only in the passage of the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to execute the MOU with the East Central Drug Task Force. Any other questions?
So, I do have one. So, in the overall sense, how does it work? Because, I'm just like anybody else. I see everything happening in the community and all. And then you look at, they seem to spend a lot of time in other areas, and you see all the publicity they get. And there's not much happening here, but there used to be more happening here. You used to have the big busts and the stuff that would happen here, and I don't know. Is it they follow up? Is it like we start an investigation and they take over? Is it like, how does that work?
So-
How does one area get punched and then another area, it's not like you say Callaway County, and then it's not like it just stops at Callaway County, but if you looked at the publicity, you would assume that it did, because, they're always like Mustang Drug Task Force, 15 people arrested,
The way it generally works, we go out and we make our own arrests, and we get information, and we funnel that information to our task force officer that's assigned here, and he combines that with other intel he's got, with other buys he's had, with other informants and stuff like that, and then he tries to make some bigger arrests, try to maybe do some search warrants, maybe do something, a traffic stop if something significant's coming in or something. He'd work with us in that area as well. So as far as the number of arrests or the number of cases, I don't know that I can really speak to that, how we compare to maybe say the rest of the task force.
I wouldn't expect you to.
I will say that, we stay in pretty solid communication with the task force and do expect them to, produce for Mexico, because that's what everybody expects, everybody when we're paying for it. Not everything, different police departments have different philosophies on how much you publicize, whether cases are tried in the media or not. So, there are some agencies that are flat trying to help garner support or maybe receive some money in some way by touting maybe some larger drug busts. But yeah, I actually don't have in front of me like their numbers the past few years. I could get those.
That's all right. I'm just asking because I see that like on Facebook or whatever. They'll see something. Because a lot of people follow everybody around us, and they're like, "Why didn't that happen here?" So I'm just the relay of the message that I hear out in the public.
Yep, I get that.
I know they do a good job. I just trying to answer a question for them.
Yeah, so the publicity side of it, that's kind of a dicey thing. technically, that's why you'd see, like, in most press releases we produce for people that have been arrested for something, you're supposed to put in that little clause that people are innocent until proven guilty, because cases are not supposed to be tried in public opinion. They're supposed to get a fair trial. And so, kind of in Mexico and East Central and maybe Audrain County, we don't maybe flaunt some of the arrests as much as some, but it doesn't mean they aren't happening. I would say that when you look at maybe some other agencies and stuff they're really flaunting, if you count it through the years, that's probably everything they've done. They're just bragging about it. Because why else would they make a big deal out of one and not another? So, I can't really say how we compare to other years or other jurisdictions, and I sure as heck can dig around and find that if that would help. But we have been satisfied with what we're doing. We feel like we're good. We're fighting things in those three prongs, and that seems to be the most effective and best way we can do right now.
Thank you.
That kind of help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
You actually put a nice memorandum on attached to this, so thank you.
What's the process? If I called public safety and said, hey, I think my neighbor's dealing drugs, and I don't, I got great, don't put that in anything. But if I called and said, here's what I think's going on, then what happens to that call?
So generally with a call like that, those calls are not uncommon at all. We get very common calls, a lot of traffic in a certain place, or they're mad. So getting a search warrant for a place kind of needs timely information. So what we're going to do is we might pay extra attention to the comings and goings of that location, both to maybe make some arrests on our own with individuals and to help make a case for the bigger fish, maybe whoever's selling. Most of the time, our information's then going to turn around and go to the task force. And like I said, they would melt that with other information they have, maybe even try to get a undercover person in to make a buy or something so that they can have the timely information to go get the warrant. And that's what you saw, 13 search warrants. So that was the result of stuff like that. So that is over one a month. So, for people who feel like they say something and nothing ever happens, stuff does happen. It's not the next day while you're still mad, but.
Thank you.
I make a motion to read bill number 2023-23.
Second. Yes.
Briggs.
Yes.
Whitmer.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes. Bill number 2023-23, a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a memorandum of understanding with the East Central Drug Task Force. I make a motion to passage of bill number 2023-23.
Second.
Page.
Yes.
Briggs.
Yes.
Whitmer.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Okay, moving on. Bill number 2023-24, we are kind of doing a sort of routine thing on a county agreement with County of Audrain and County Collector to collect motor vehicle license fees and other things. Mr. Schlegel.
Yes, Your Honor. This is for the collector's agreement that we do, and this is for the collection of, as mentioned, personal property, real estate taxes, and so on. And we've been having this agreement for some time. To cover the details of the agreement, Roger Haynes.
Good evening, Council. The City of Mexico entered into this agreement with the County of Audrain back in 1986. It allows the county collector to send out tax bills and collect the city's personal property, real estate, and even vehicle license stickers for the city. The agreement was revised again in 2013 and 2019 to incorporate changes in the fee collection structure as governed by Missouri state statutes. The 23 agreement, as in the 2019 agreement, includes a fee charged by the county to the city on current delinquent tax payments in the amount of 3% and a $4,000 payment to the county to compensate the collector for collection, extraction, and distribution of funds collected for the city taxes and motor vehicle license fees. The 23 agreement, as in the 2019 agreement, stipulates a 2.5% fee charged by the county on collection of back taxes. The agreement under Section 7, or Section 12, does add the parties mutually agree that if the city chooses to no longer have the collector of revenue collect delinquent taxes, such decision will be effective to terminate the collection as of December 31 of that year. The county retains the ability to collect the delinquent taxes for any taxes due and owing prior to that termination date. So if we, again, terminated that agreement, they can continue to collect on those past taxes, but if they do collect them, then they get to retain them rather than return a portion to the city. The agreement retains the language written in the 2019 agreement that the agreement would be void should the city or any of its subsidiaries enter into a property assessment clean energy program or similar program that falls under the Property Assessment Clean Energy Act, also known as PACE. This agreement has provided an efficient way for collection of fees and taxes and does not add any additional cost to the taxpayer. Staff does recommend that council proceed with reading by title only and passage of the attached resolution. If you'd like to answer any questions.
So, one is, so the new solar energy, does that fall in this energy thing, clean energy we're talking about?
This is energy efficiencies to individual property owners.
And so on property taxes, they charge 3% plus 4,000?
Yeah, yes.
3% plus 4,000. On the back taxes, it's 2.5.
That also.
Less.
And then a lot of that, outside of the $4,000 amount, the rest of it is set by state statute.
Okay, and then the city licenses, or the city vehicle, what? Vehicle taxes?
Yes. Several years ago, there was a $5.25 city vehicle sticker that someone would put on their window to show they paid a license fee for that vehicle traveling on the city streets, and the people that actually would live in the city. Then if someone didn't have that sticker on their window, then public safety could pull them over and say, hey, you haven't bought your city sticker, you could potentially be taken to court for not paying the particular fee. Well, once we went to the other tax collections with the county, then people were having to come in every year and buy their decal and put on their window. And those that have been around for several years, there would be some windows that were so clouded with stickers, they don't know how they saw out the window. It also, when we looked at in a review how many vehicles were subject to this fee that weren't coming in, it behooved us to make that agreement with the county so when they came in and paid their other taxes, they collected that fee. And that fee goes straight toward road work for the city. It's designated for that purpose.
So we still have that fee?
We do.
I didn't know that. I'll be all right, that's all I have.
Guess you're not old enough to have a sticker, huh?
No, I guess not. Old enough to have a sticker.
I am.
You got a sticker? You got a sticker?
I love it.
I got, yeah, I actually got
And I
fined.
believe that.
I actually got fined for not having when I got caught. Anybody want to?
I move for reading of bill number 2023-24.
Second.
Hay,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Bill number 2023-24, resolution authorizing city manager to execute agreement with the county of Audrain and the county collector to collect motor vehicle license fees, city personal property, and real estate taxes. I move for passage of bill number 2023-24.
Second.
Hay,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Okay, next thing on the agenda is something that I'm very interested in. Glad to see you. And it has to do with the pool slide. Resolution authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement with the Westport Pools and for the design and construction of a water slide in Fairground Park. So Fairgrounds, Mr. Schlegel.
Yes, sure. This agreement is with Westport Pools, and for the addition of the water slides that we've been talking about for some time. And in order to guarantee prices, we got to get moving. So, Chad, we'll start with you as far as the project, and I believe then you'll introduce Ryan at that point.
Thank you, Bruce. Good evening. As Bruce said, getting this kind of a project under contract is critical to actually being able to build it. construction space on the factories that make these things is extremely limited, and Westport has been extremely kind to keep us in this process through waiting out the state's ARPA grant that we had applied for that we unfortunately did not get, along with most communities in North Missouri. So for no further ado, the resolution authorizes the city manager to sign an agreement with Westport Pools of Maryland Heights, Missouri for the design and construction of a water slide at the Fairgrounds Park Aquatic Center for the stipulated sum of $670,879. As you know, Larry, you weren't around for this, but I think the rest of you pretty much were. In 2016, we started a design-build process. In the state of Missouri, it's very rigorous, the process you have to go through to be able to use design-build as a municipality. We had to go and originally get an engineer's estimate as to what a project would cost, and then after that, we had to go out and we had to have a design competition, and at the end of that design competition, Westport Pools was the company selected to build our aquatic center. That whole process took about, I want to say about 2.5 years. This part of the project was originally platted out and is on the original drawings for the pool. If you'll recall, going into the pandemic, we were more than relatively uncertain about our revenue stream going forward, and so we made lots of cuts to various things at that point in time. We always wanted to actually build this because it's a critical part of the breadth of families that this facility can serve. Right now, we're kind of limited to, we get up to upper junior high, and we don't have the correct level of risk for a child to actually, or a youth at that point, to actually use the facility and gain the kind of play values that we really want our kids to have. This should stretch this project into households that we currently aren't serving, and that was part of the whole original process of putting it in. We've been over the funding plenty of times in all the budget meetings where we've talked about this. Larry, if you want to get caught up, I can catch you up later. Staff recommends that council does proceed with reading by title only and passage for the resolution authorizing the city manager to sign an agreement with Westport Pools for design and build of a water slide at Fairgrounds Park Aquatic Center. And as Vicki noticed, we do have the very tall Ryan Castle, president of Westport Pools, with us. Any questions that, about this that I can't answer, Ryan certainly can handle the technical detail side of it.
Yeah, so when now will our new slide open? Well, I know it's not opening this summer, but are we?
Spring, correct? Yes, yeah. So Memorial Day of 24.
Okay, be next season.
Right, yeah.
Because we were talking about not having that.
It has to be manufactured in time for all the pieces to be here for them to start construction.
Okay.
So we need to start manufacturing this summer, which is the whole point of, and we get a better price for manufacturing during the summertime instead of fall.
Okay, thank you. Do I have anything else? Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.
And do I have a motion?
Make a motion to read bill number 2023-25.
Second.
A.
Yes.
Briggs.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes. Bill number 2023-25, the resolution authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement with Westport Pools as a design builder for the design and construction of a water slide at the Fairground Parks Aquatic Center. I move for passage of bill number 2023-25.
Second.
A.
Yes.
Briggs.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Okay. We're moving on to chip seal project, resolution authorizing the city manager to sign a contract documents with Missouri Petroleum Products Company for the 2023 chip seal project. Mr. Schlegel.
Yes, Your Honor. As part of this project, we did do a cooperative bidding process that we've done in the last couple of years to try to secure better prices. And what that really means is that we bid with other entities in order to try to get the price down as far as for quantity purposes. And to cover the details of the bids received and the projects this year, Drew Williford.
Good evening, council. you're familiar with our chip seal projects, this will be, I believe, our third year of conducting this work. This year is very similar to the prior years. We conducted this through Boone County, along with Callaway County and the City of Fulton, supporting the cooperative purchase. And because of that, we feel like we got some pretty good pricing on these bids. 2 bids were received, with Missouri Petroleum being the low bidder on this project. And with the quantities that we have, that cost comes to a total of $189,393.60. The cost, looking back to the previous year, it did increase. In 2022, we paid about $2.99 per square yard for our chip seal work. And this year, it comes down to about $3.29. The amount of product we have increased this year. We're doing a little larger project. Some of our larger streets, a little higher volume on them, are at the point of needing a seal treatment. And so we're going to try to jump on that before we are forced to do a much more expensive treatment like an asphalt mill and overlay. So at this point, staff would recommend proceeding with reading by title only and passage of the attached resolution. If you have any questions?
Would you mind, I mean, do you have the map there of what you're doing as far as?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have a map for you this evening.
Yeah.
My apologies.
Would you mind just, yeah, I know, I've got
I'll be happy
it.
to
Would you
speak.
mind just as for a matter of public interest, just sort of telling us what the big streets are?
Yeah, absolutely. So some of these streets were determined by what we had crack and joint sealed the prior year. So the residential routes that are in essence, the west, just a second here, West Jackson, West Promenade, and then Moreland, those routes in that area, which would be immediately west of the Kentucky Street over by the Maintenance Building, and same thing with the routes which are more or less in the central portion of the city. Those are all on there because they were crack and joint sealed in the previous year. So we're going through and hitting those. The larger streets that I mentioned earlier would include Clark Street from Boulevard to, in essence, the bridge. Love Street, right out here from Agricultural all the way to Olive. Hendricks from Route 15 to Kentucky. Those are sort of the primary streets that we see as being in need of a seal treatment at this time, and if we end up having to mill and overlay, then the cost would be substantial. I hope that provided it.
Yeah, and the reason I ask is people watch the, and they maybe say, okay, which streets are they doing? So,
Yeah, my apologies, I'll have the map for the presentation.
all right, any questions?
I move for reading of bill number 2023-26.
Second?
A.
Yes.
Briggs.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Bill number 2023-26, a resolution authorizing the city manager to sign contract documents with Missouri Petroleum Products Company, LLC, for the 2023 chip seal project. I move for passage of bill number 2023-26.
Second.
A.
Yes.
Briggs.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Okay, moving on. Next thing up is a stormwater. We have a resolution authorizing the city manager to sign a contract documents with MECO Engineering Company Incorporated for the ARPA stormwater grant through the Missouri Department of Natural Resources. Mr. Schlagle.
Yes, Your Honor, we have actually 2 grants that we did receive, and so as part of this presentation, initially we'll cover both of those for the next 2 resolutions. The biggest difference in the 2 grants is that one was a 21% match for the amount the city had to produce, and then the other was just a $1 match. So we were able to leverage our ARPA funds into receiving a considerable amount more funds in order to do a lot of work. This process right now is just selecting the engineering firm. So to cover the details of that and the amounts, once again, Drew Wolford.
Council, that's absolutely right. We're looking at moving forward with 2 different engineers, and so this one is actually MECO Engineering. They're out of Hannibal, Missouri. They have offices elsewhere. The office we've been dealing with is out of Hannibal. And so we are pursuing this from the standpoint, because we have so much work with these 2 grants, which is a blessing, we're going to split that into 2 different consultants. So we're looking at dividing that work up relatively evenly between the 2. The selection process has been completed. We did a request for qualifications, and we received a total of 8 engineering firms. Scoring committee met and reviewed all of those applications, and MECO Engineering was one of the top 2 that was evaluated and scored. And so we pursued negotiating a contract with them, and as you can see on the report here, they have provided that contract. They also have gone through the DNR review for the contract, so everything is to DNR's standards and specifications to complete design services and construction administration services. So on the front end and on during when the project's in construction. We would be relying on this firm for both. We're looking for 21% match grant. We're looking at a total of $233,000. And then for the $1 match grant, that would be $539,400. I'm sorry, that's a total for both, my apologies. For the $1 match, you see above that is $306,400. Rather large sums of money for engineering work, but we did do a review on their hourly rates, and they are actually very comparable to what we are using right now for our on-call consultants. So looking at moving this process forward, we have to have a resolution in order to proceed with an obligation of funds from the Department of Natural Resources. And so we would recommend proceeding with reading by title only of 2 attached resolutions. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Move for reading of Bill 2023-27 by title only.
Thank you. Drew.
Second.
Resolution? I'm sorry, I forgot to vote.
Abe,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Now can I do it?
Yes, sir.
Resolution authorizing the city manager to sign contract documents with MECO Engineering Company, Inc. for an ARPA stormwater grant through the Missouri Department of Natural Resources. You want me to read all this other stuff? I don't have any idea what it's all about. DNR-SW, whatever all that's.
No, it's good.
Pardon? Oh, go ahead, you want me to read that? Let me finish that. There's E6ACF0D6A299. Are you happy? Okay.
I move for passage of bill number 2023-27.
Second.
Abe,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
And now the second bill, I'll just go ahead and, I move, is a resolution authorizing the city manager to sign a contract documents with MECO Engineering. That's the second one he mentioned. So,
We got to vote on the reading, though. Are you going to read it?
I'll go ahead and read it.
I mean, I can, I just...
Go ahead,
Were you
go
going-
ahead,
Okay.
go ahead.
I move for reading of bill number 2023-28.
Second. Green.
Abe,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Bill number 2023-28, resolution authorizing city manager to sign contract documents with MECO Engineering Company Incorporated for an ARPA stormwater grant through the Missouri Department of Natural Resources, DNR SW 745E73C59FEE. I move for passage of bill number 2023-28.
Second.
Abe,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Okay, thank you with all that. Next thing is we have a staff report on lift pump for the wastewater department. Mr. Schlegel.
Yes, Your Honor. We have some repairs needed on what we call the Route D lift station, and this is out on the southern part of the community by Creative Foods. And to cover the details of the work that needs to be done and the costs, Drew Wilford.
Council, this is the unhappy portion of the report because it involves a piece of machinery that broke down. It does not involve any grant work. We have a lift station. We have a total of 13 lift stations throughout the city of Mexico that serve nearly 5 miles of force main. And one of those lift stations had a pump go down, and it turns out that it had a seal failure which damaged a number of internal components. And so we approached Vandeventer Engineering, who handles our preventive maintenance and the repairs for flag pumps. And they did a thorough review and also quoted us a price for repair and also replacement. Looking at the two options, though, the best option we deemed was repair. And the cost for that is at a total of $10,252.51. Our 2022 to 23 budget does have sufficient funds to replace this, to repair it, as this will be the first expenditure to come out of the line item we have for this particular issue. And so if we can get this moving forward, the idea would be we would get this back hopefully in just a few weeks. The deadline on some of these parts can be important, but right now we have most of these lift stations are what we call duplex, and so we still have one pump operating, and we do have the ability to get a portable pump out there if necessary. So we would recommend authorizing the repair for the Route D lift station pump for the wastewater department at a cost of $10,252.51.
What's replacement cost?
$16,000 and change. Enough, $16,109.
So,
Enough that we felt, given the age of the pump, it was not worth it.
how old's the pump?
It was only 6 or 7 years old, and we expect the life to be well over double that. For that money, I understand it was hard to fill a swallow seeing the repair.
Well, I was just, you have 25,000 replacement cost on here, so I was just, that's why I was within the line item, so that's why I was looking at that, okay. I move to authorize the repair of the Route D lift station pump for the wastewater department for $10,252.51 to Vanda Venter Engineering.
Second.
A,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
And next thing we have, is that it? Okay.
Move to pay the bills.
Pay the bills.
A,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Comments from the council, and I think I'll start with me. Okay, and first of all, I'd like to, because I was talking with Chris here about his son, about the performance of the academic team. Your son was a star, by the way. So we congratulate them, and they placed third in the state, right? And they go on to
Nationals in Chicago.
Nationals in Chicago. Okay, we wish them well.
Thank you. Pass it along.
Steve?
Also, congratulations to the academic team. It was good to see all the pictures and representing Mexico. Drew, the Muldrow and Jackson intersection. Have we talked to the state about that?
Yes. We have, and we've instituted a new tracking protocol for any complaints that we get with the Department of Transportation routes that run through Mexico. So we have that in place. We're forwarding any complaints immediately, and then we also now have what we call a tracker that we're sending essentially quarterly to the Missouri Department of Transportation.
Because it's getting a little chattery. I mean, it's becoming, and people say something to me, and of course the answer is, it is a state highway, but it is getting chattery.
Steve, the mayor and I talked about that today, and I think we're at the point because, and the reason I say this is that we have continuously reported that to them with very little success. And in fact, even Progress Mexico held a meeting with the area engineer, the assistant director, and we did that, I forget the timing now. So it's been 2-3 months, and we've seen still no action. So I've mentioned to the mayor that I think it's time that we as the city, and if you guys are so direct, I'll write that letter for the mayor's signature or mine or whatever, but I think we need to send it on to the director, and basically of the DOT that says, this is unacceptable, and we need action on this. It's not about planning, it's simple, basic maintenance, and we just aren't getting any attention there. And I don't know what else to do, because our calls seem to go unanswered.
No, I get it. I mean, I know that they're the ones dragging their feet, so,
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't know if there was some talk and, this is something we're trying to plan out, or they're trying to plan out to make, so, yeah, I notice it, and then people say that, and, and so, it's kind of like having your hands tied.
You want to put this on the next agenda? Or is that soon enough?
If I get consensus from you guys
yeah.
right now, let's just send a letter. I'll be glad to put it under my signature or the mayor. It doesn't really matter, and let's go straight to the director and say, look, we've tried other avenues, and it's not getting attention.
Yeah.
Well, I agree. I have a question. Wasn't that street on their list to replace? Or overseal or something at one point?
It's in their scoping, as they tell us, which basically really
You know, that
means
is.
that it's,
They've been scoping out 54 for 10 years now,
Yeah.
so.
My other thing is as I was traveling, so I pulled out my MML magazine with the marijuana big thing on it and the passage of it, and I started reading it, and I emailed Bruce and talked a little bit, and one of the things that kind of stuck out to me is that marijuana has some restrictions on where you can smoke it, but usually it follows the smoking guidelines of the city, from what the understanding is. And what I found out is we really have no smoking bans in the city of Mexico, which concerns me, because my first thing is, from what I understood, if you did have smoking bans, you have to go back to the ordinances and you have to add marijuana to it. I think that's just to make sure it's legal. My concern is, and I don't want to step on, I get it. Once you start talking smoking bans, businesses run up in here because certain businesses are going to cater to smokers and all that. I really just don't want to see people smoking in our parks, marijuana in our parks and stuff. And I think it might be something that we need to address or discuss on how we proceed. You really can't do much about people in their cars. I'm sure there's some legality to that, but I'm just thinking about someone goes out to play pickleball and someone's sitting out there on a bench smoking marijuana, and I know that, I get it, we passed the law and everything like that, but I think there's something that I think we need to dive into this and at least start talking about what kind of, just to make sure that we have some sort of a wrap on, you can't smoke here.
I read that magazine too. It left me a little confused, I'll say.
Yeah.
I talked to the park board chairman today, and so he had his opinion on what the law says and what the amendment says. So I think we have enough confusion about it. At least I'm with him. I'm kind of confused about it, and it seems to me like it's a little maybe different issue than maybe just smoking, and then you're seeing on Facebook about people wanting to have these smoking parties in the park, and so let's, and if anybody's in agree with me, I would say it's probably a subject for at least a work session type thing.
And how do the other forms of marijuana fit into this? I understand the smoking and the smell and the sense of people smoking, watching people smoke, kids watching people smoke marijuana. But how do the gummy bears, or whatever the heck they call those things, and all the brownies and all that, how's that fit into this kind of stuff? Can you not smoke? I'm asking, because I don't know.
Yeah.
Can you not, if we're not smoking marijuana in the park, can I chew on my gummy bears, or whatever those things are?
I don't know how that falls. I guess that you probably wouldn't know if somebody was chewing on gummy bears. You know a little bit more if someone's smoking it, just because of it. But I think it's pull, Dave and Bryson, it's just probably going to be some sort of a, where do we, legality-wise from a city standpoint, and, I'm sure public safety has their thought process on they probably get reports and people calling on, people not happy with it, because I know I've walked out of a convenience store and I thought I was at a concert, that's usually where I encounter it, so not personally, just, someone.
Yeah, and I totally agree, and this is a discussion we need to have, and I would prompt Dave through city attorney, and I know their firm's done a lot of work on this subject, and there's, different fronts of it, from a zoning issue and locating of some of things, but certainly the public smoking issues and so on. So I think there's a lot of issues about it, and I know they've done some work, so I think a work session would be great. He can maybe go over the legalities and where we're at and what we can and can't do, and maybe try to resolve some of the confusion and see where you might want to go with it.
Okay, let's do that. It's going to take a little study and
Yeah, it is.
information gathering, as you put it. Okay, let's see. We got you, me, and you.
You didn't go. She skipped you.
Were you not finished, Steve?
No,
I'm
she skipped
sorry.
Mr.
I skipped.
Go with Mr. Weber, and you'll come back.
You can come back to me, it's okay.
I'll get back to
You're
you.
ruining your opportunity for a free cheeseburger.
Okay. Just blew it. Okay. Go ahead.
I just got a couple of little issues.
Let him do
One
it, and I'll
that,
get you, Chris.
That I brought up before, and I think you're working on addressing is people who own businesses downtown are going to get mad at me again, but the appearance of downtown is not, it's not only, our buildings not looking good, they're not, the downtown's not clean. I just go back to the same old thing I've beaten up before is, if we're trying to sell Mexico, if I'm trying to sell my house, I want my front door and my front entrance to look good. And if we're trying to sell Mexico and somebody drives through, I think they're not going to get a great impression driving through our downtown. There's some other areas too, but some of it's not in the city. Some of it's in Vanderbilt we can't do anything about, but there are a lot of toilets out there, as a matter of fact. But anyway, that's a concern. And then the other concern I have has been brought up a couple of times in the last week or 10 days, actually, and it's related to what two developers and one contractor have mentioned to me are the apparent desire not to have residences built in Mexico based on the fees and all the hoops they have to jump through and the different places they have to go to do this. They point out Centralia, they point out Fulton, they point out other places, but most of which have their own municipal water, maybe their own municipal power, so they don't have to deal with whatever our water company's called. Missouri American, yeah. And that's the biggest issue, I think, financially and hassle. So is there anything that, I guess my question is somewhere along the line, not tonight obviously, but is there anything that we can do we can't do anything about telling utilities what they can charge and what they can't charge, I suppose, but can we do anything to help developers, builders with some of the fees they have to pay? And I suspect that we can't pay them directly. Is there anything we can do to help them offset some stuff? I don't know.
I can address a couple of those. Let's start with the downtown appearance and so on. We've heard that, and in fact, we've made a couple of adjustments. And I'm going to look to Miss Rita Jackson out here, and that, not to have her speak on it, but we've adjusted some duties. And that's one of the things that we're going to start looking at. And we've asked Rita to take on looking at community beautification in downtown and see if there's some grants and different things that we can do from a community to help with it. So,
Why don't you not do anything else?
we've tried to free some things up to her by moving some others' duties around, but she has probably the most experience in this area and done some things for us in the history with housing and all kinds of things, and we felt she was best qualified to do that. And so putting her really on the spot at this point on it, but I know she's still got a lot of things to sort through and look at it. So anyway, we're expecting great things from her on this.
If we're working on it, that's important. I think.
So, yeah, we felt we had to start addressing it, and so we've heard those same things. Now, with the developer fees, we've heard the same thing, especially with Missouri American Water. And one of the things that we did with our ARPA funds that we got, we created what we call the Housing Incentive Program, or the HIP program. And so we do work with developers, and one of the development that was happening on the west side of town, once they put the utilities and everything in, the program does help refund or reimburse, I should say, some of those costs. Okay. And now there's certain parameters of the program and everything, and there is some money left in that program. I've had 2 additional inquiries in that program, one from an additional lots out there, because you have to develop so many lots, and it's residential, and there's some parameters to it. And I think they did 12 lots to begin with, and he's looking at doing 18 more. This particular developer. And then I've had another developer contact me also about some others. So, but we do have some funding left in that, and so we're hoping maybe that will meet some of those, at least this round of stuff. And it's kind of that short-term solution in that it's ARPA funds, so we're not going to have those funds forever. But if we can do some things now to help some of that, that's what we can do for now. So,
Do we ever do like a committee of like local contractors and stuff and say, you know, because I know we have local contractors that go to other cities and do work, and kind of what Mr. Weber was hitting on, I heard, you know, it's much easier to do work in this town. Not that it means it's better. It just means it's much easier. Do we ever bring in these contractors, these businesses in Mexico that might reach out and just hear their thought processes of, you know, why is it better to do business, why is it better to go do a job in this town versus Mexico? And just say, and some of those things we wouldn't be able to, I mean, because we have ordinances and we have, you know, we want to make sure we have codes and laws and stuff like that. But is there something there where, I mean, if we do have a conversation with these people that it's like, oh, we never thought about that, that might make it easier. And so I don't know, you know, because I know, and I don't know who you would put on the list, you rotate it, but, you know, they don't just work Mexico, they work other places too and have jobs outside of it.
we had a lot of those discussions a year ago, and that's what developed this program. And it was not only talking to developers, it was talking to the builders and even like the bankers, and we talked to the utilities. And it came down to we couldn't really affect Missouri American because it's a private business. And it's, the Public Service Commission is the ones that allows them these rates and everything else, and, you know, we don't. And so that's why you come up with this program, and it seemed to have helped. So in essence, yes, we've had a lot of those discussions with realtors and builders and developers, and we had a lot of those a year ago that developed this program.
I just want to say thanks for all the community support for the academic team. It was nice, and shout out to KXEO. They were on top of it. So, you know, it really made my son feel special, and, you know, we don't always hear about all the academic stuff, so it was good that. And then to Councilman Weber's point about when people come into town, just last Tuesday, we had big shots from Chicago and stuff from McDonald's come through town. Now, they didn't say anything, but to your point, you could have somebody come through town for whatever, and they see it, and they're like, they could be like, wow, this is a nice town, versus, I don't really want to do business there. It seems kind of run down. And to that point, I would say the AP Green property, the overgrowth of the bushes and everything is getting really bad down there. Does that fall under our
Should fall under
code
some
to clean up?
ordinances. Should fall under our ordinances, yeah.
Well, I didn't know if it's just grass or not, but the bushes are just like, I mean, before long, I'm waiting for the whole thing to be encompassed and stuff, and I'm like, that looks horrible. On the main street. And like if somebody came from the airport, they would probably come down Boulevard right by that. So
That was a topic of staff meeting this morning, and I know Rita's starting to look into it.
okay.
Well, as long as we are complaining. Let's get it all out. It seems to me, I've just noticed a few more houses, and I seem to have noticed in the past, that just have huge amounts of junk on their front porches, in their front yards. And I know we have ordinance for that, so we might take a little big deal, you know, and they're on streets I haven't seen it on before. And so we might take a little time to also address that. Okay, and now we go to anybody else? Oh, you got more grapes?
No, I'm good.
Okay, all right. We've done our comments from the council, and now we're ready for the public. And anybody wanting to stand up to speak, you have to state your name, your address, and you have 3 minutes. Okay, we've complained plenty for all of you, see? Okay.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
A.
Yes.
Briggs.
Yes.
Webb.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you, Pam.